King of Fires is an often overlooked trait because the new buffed Eternal Champion gives a lot more utility and survivability, but King of Fires allows a lot more burst damage, which allows you to kill these tankier things before they can resustain. Even though this is a condition build, it's one of the higher burst build for World versus World as a warrior, because you can stack up like 10 stacks of conditions in a short combo, which allows you to pretty much one-shot enemies if they don't cleanse your burning within one tick. So let's just go over the build real quick. All of the gear is going to be pretty much the same, just full Trailblazer on both versions. On sword, we want a Hydromancy sigil, and on the torch, we want an energy sigil. Then on the mace, geomancy, and on the offhand sword, you want cleansing. So you can swap your offhand sword for a shield. If you want a little bit more like defense, then go for shield. A little bit more offense, go for sword. But I think that the sword is really good because it gives you a little bit more potential to catch up to targets, because it gives a little bit of cripple, and you're a full melee build. Now, the reason that I want a Hydromancy on one weapon and a Geomancy on the other is because when you swap weapon, you get adrenaline, but you also get adrenaline if you hit an enemy, and your sigil swap actually counts as hitting an enemy. And this is really important because when you use your Berserker Primal Burst skills, you want to use the next one immediately. So you do your burst, you swap weapon, and then you essentially can immediately burst again if you hit them with that swap sigil. Now for the relic, you can go for Nyos, which gives you a little bit more sustain. This build does not have very much sustain other than through the defense trait line. So it's nice to get a little bit more healing from cleansing ire, swapping weapons, mending, and of course the cleansing sigil. But you can also use the relic of Akeem, which will give you a lot more stacks of confusion whenever you use your primal burst mace skill, which gives 5 confusion, and then it'll trigger the relic of Akeem to give 10 confusion. So a lot more burst if you land that skill. And then in the traits, we just take the normal discipline traits, the normal defense traits, but in Berserker, we have Last Blaze. The burning effect is a sort of like a strike almost, even though it does no damage. Whenever you use a utility skill from the Berserker class, you will do an extra bit of burning. Now, that happens before the headbutt actually hits. You'll essentially burn and then headbutt in the kind of like programming of the game. And why that's important is because if you have blind or the target has Aegis on it, it will attempt to burn that target first and therefore fail to burn it with the blind. And instead of you missing your headbutt, you'll miss the burn. And that's, you know, it's okay to miss the burn if you're going to hit the headbutt. So it's really good against thieves and guardians where they have like Aegis or they blind you constantly. You can still headbutt through their blind field on those thieves that are trying to do non-stop like blind field combos on you with that whirling finisher they get from stealing from a warrior. So this is really good for countering what counters warriors. Then I go for Dead or Alive. This is not too important. You could go for even more damage from blood reaction, or you could go for more might and fury from Heat the Soul, but because the build doesn't have much sustain, I go for Dead or Alive. But like I said, you can go for either one of these, to be honest. And then King of Fires, which is the most important trait here. So whenever you crit an enemy, you'll gain a Fire Aura. We don't really have much crit potential in this build, and it's not too important that you go for that extra 15-second Fire Aura, because we're just going to generate our own Fire Auras. But we can detonate those Fire Auras by using a Rage skill, which counts as any kind of like skill that you can only access as a Berserker. So Torch skills count, Primal Burst skills count, and any of your Rage utilities count as Berserker only skills. And what we're going to be doing is getting multiple Fire Auras by leaping through that fire field, detonating them, and then repeating. So the combo is going to look like this, right? We're going to use Flames of War, and then we can use Sundering Leap, which is both a finisher and a skill, so it detonates its own combo. And then we've got another Fire Aura, and we can use Headbutt. So the Sword 2 will give you a Fire Aura through your Torch 5, and then Torch 4 or Headbutt can detonate it, or one of your primal burst skills. And then when you have a Fire Aura, you don't want to use Sundering Leap, because Sundering Leap will create and detonate a Fire Aura. But if you're out of the fire field from Flames of War, then that can be fine, right? But just understand that Sundering Leap does both, so you want to do it without the aura, because it'll create and destroy it. And then use Sword 2 to get another one, and then Headbutt. And you've got, basically that's 2 detonations of fire, which gives you like 6 burning stacks. And while that's happening, you're pulsing Flames of War, the Torch 5 skill itself, around the target. And you could be also using your burst F1 skills as well, like right after. So you have a lot of burst damage. So let's just try to show the combo that we'd be doing. And also, mind you, we can add even more to this by, if we replace Endure Pain with Bull's Charge, which is a combo finisher leap. So if we do that inside the Flames of War, we could do 5 into Bull's Charge into Torch 4, and then we do Sundering Leap. So that would actually just look like this. We do Bull's Charge, Torch 4, Sword 2, Headbutt, Sundering Leap, and that's a whole lot of burn right there, as you can see. So that's the more aggressive combo with the Bull's Charge, but not having 2 stun breaks, even though Headbutt technically counts as a stun break, you're not really using it as a stun break all the time. So I generally like to have 2 stun breaks that I can use. So I put Endure Pain there because we have plenty of condition cleansing on this build, so a little bit of extra power countering is nice. But yeah, you can go Bull's Charge or Shake It Off if you're going against conditions. But that's the basic combo that we're going to be doing, right? But after that combo, we're going to want to go into our Berserk mode. So we're going to do the combo again here. Go in, detonate, detonate again, and then we're going to immediately use our F2 into F1, swap F1 again, and then we can hit them with the Sword 4. Use the 2, and that will give you adrenaline if you need extra adrenaline. You just mash it twice so that it removes that, and then we swap, get the extra burst skill, and we ran out of Berserk mode there. So what we're going to do is wait for our Flames of War. So you want to use Flames of War when you're out of Berserk mode, and then when you're in Berserk mode, you don't want to use it, because essentially what we're doing is keeping up the pressure. We want to have pressure outside of Berserk mode when we're locked out of Berserk mode, and then we want to have pressure inside it, which we're going to get from our F1 skills. So we do the combo, we get a bunch of damage, and then we continue the combo by using our burst skills and our weapon skills to get adrenaline. We're going to do another burst before we swap out, and then we swap again. You can see how I can immediately chain my burst skills into each other, and then we're going to run out now, but we want to use the Torch 5 into our next combo, so we're going to do that. And then we just lock them down, and as you can see, my combo is already ready to follow through. So if you just get that flow down of using the finishers with the Fire Aura and then going into your Berserk mode, you will have plenty of pressure on your targets. Just understand that you've got 2 ways to pressure: Torch with combos, and then bursts in Berserk mode. That's pretty much the build. So here's a 1v1 with a Celestial Harbinger. One of the harder matchups in the game right now, but I have a lot of Projectile Reflect, which is a counter to Harbingers because they have a lot of projectiles from my Mace 2 and my Sword 5, and also the Sword Primal Burst is a projectile block. So we've got a lot of ways to survive long enough, but we mostly need to pressure them because Harbingers have an insane amount of sustain, and if you don't have enough pressure, they'll just out-sustain you while also out-pressuring you. So we did our first Torch combo and Primal Burst combo, so we're kind of waiting for the Torch to come up, dodge these marks, and then I kind of messed up by using Sword 2 there. I should have used the Sundering Leap because that would have given me the Aegis, so I needed to Sundering Leap out because I knew that they were going to CC me because they just went into Shroud, so I didn't want to get hit by that. So that was a pretty good management of my positioning there to prevent getting CC'd. I lost a couple times to this Harbinger before, so this is not a winning matchup, in other words. But I have kind of adapted by knowing that I'll get CC'd. Like, you can get CC'd a lot by a Harbinger. Now, here's one of the CC combos I'm getting hit by. I just take basically like 70% of my health from getting that vital draw on me, but I come back and get a nice skull grinder on them. And now they've used their elite, so I just want to block because they've got a lot of boons. I can't really counter pressure them. They fear me in my Torch 5 animation, and then they CC me in my headbutt animation, so I lost those pretty much. I go back into my Torch 5 and do the burst, but I eat their Corrupt from Shroud 2. I get my cleanse off right before they finish me off with their conditions, and I waited till they dodged there to land my Skull Grinder, and now we can use our Sword Burst. I use Headbutt, but it gets interrupted again. I use my Skull Grinder just to get a little bit of pressure before I have to get out with my Sundering Leap because I'm really pressured. And I get corrupted, but I didn't have many boons here. I use my Torch combo here now, so I use the Rage skill. I immobilize them in my Torch 5, so we get a lot of damage off and cover condies from the swapping into Geo Sigil, but yeah, they just get it cleansed because Harbingers have so much Condi cleanse. But I've got my Sword Burst going. I wait for their dodge there to use a Skull Grinder. So you can see I used the Sword 4 first because I knew they were going to dodge. And now they've got no dodges, so I can headbutt them because they just dodged. I saw they dodged again. So it's a double dodge. And therefore I can just land my headbutt there for free because I knew that they wouldn't dodge it. We got a bunch of damage off, but they kind of cleanse now. I reflect their Pistol 2 back at them. They use their elite skill, so I have to get away. Use the Sundering Leap to projectile block. Gotta avoid losing my Aegis because that's what gives me the projectile reflect as well. I land my headbutt, and I get the full duration of the headbutt by waiting until it's about to run out, because if you daze them when they're stunned, you're going to remove their stun. So yeah, I got the Sword 4 out there before I used the daze from the Skull Grinder, which gave me a lot more value from the CC. Now I've got my Torch combo here. I should be moving around them instead of standing still. And I land a headbutt into the Skull Grinder. Didn't get the max value there, but I wanted to make sure I did the damage. I didn't have anything else to use anyways. And I got my Sword Primal Burst. I got my Skull Grinder, which I use after the dodge, and then we get the kill. So you can see Skull Grinder is an animation that you really play around when you're fighting against this build. So for you to play around that, you need to bait out dodges and then land the Skull Grinder, because that's really important to land, but also extremely telegraphed. But that is pretty much how you play the King of Fire's Berserker build for World vs. World Roaming. If you like this content, like it as usual, subscribe for more, and I will see you all in the next expansion, where I will be a warrior main.